don't give up. I know it's so hard sometimes when you're just like looking for a house and you're wanting to save and all that, and it can feel really discouraging. But honestly, like when the time comes and the right property comes and the time is right,
It's all worth it.
it's all worth it.
Welcome to Slice, Property Made Possible. We're a platform on a mission to reduce barriers to home ownership. This podcast is a safe space for our community to learn together and build the confidence required to start on their property journey. When you're ready to start, head along to slicetobuy.com and sign up for your free dashboard.
Welcome back to another episode of Slice. Today we're joined by Alluka Sakura. Hello, Alluka.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm very excited to hear more about your story. But yeah, we'll jump right in. So tell us a little bit about buying your first home, Alluka.
So basically, I went in with my mum. So co-ownership with my mum. We've been looking for probably about 18 months until we found the right one. But when I tell you, it was such a process. And yeah, basically we decided to go in together because with the cost of living and everything right now in New Zealand and just like being able to buy your own home as a young Kiwi, it is really difficult, especially if, you know, you're earning under a certain tax bracket. It's pretty difficult, yeah.
Yeah, I actually, full disclosure, bought with my mum as
Oh,
well.
did you?
So we've just had her on in a recent episode and talking about that structure. So yeah, how did those conversations go with you and your mum?
So we'd actually been talking about it probably about a year and or so prior to us being serious about, okay, we're actually going to do it. So how is this going to work? I think after my parents sold their house and they were separating everything, my mum was like, okay, well, I want to buy probably a unit for myself. And I was obviously going to leave my family home, go rent. And then my mum just said, well, you know, it's going to start getting more expensive to buy homes. Why don't we go in together and we find something that's suitable for both of us? And that was going to be the best way to get onto the property market.
So in terms of kind of your contributions and how much she was providing, do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my mum actually put down most of the deposit and I contributed from my Kiwi saver and also a lot of money that I'd saved over as well. I can't say the exact amount just for her privacy, but she put down most of the deposit. But, you know, the mortgage,
Serviceability you kind of support with.
Exactly.
That seems to be the common problem. It's actually that deposit. We've got, you know, millennials in particular, they're sort of making up the majority of that home buying journey. I mean, you get a mixture on either side, but they seem to really struggle with that deposit, but they might have really good income.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, now you need sort of 100K or a 200K deposit to be able to get it.
And it's definitely difficult, especially if you've only been in the, you know, working for a couple of years, you've done uni and then you're paying off a student loan and all this other stuff, all these factors, it makes it really difficult to save up a big enough deposit for a bank to say, yes, we're going to go ahead and give you a loan. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you guys kind of thought about doing that, were there any sort of barriers to doing so or any kind of concerns that you or your mum had about the co-ownership process?
I think the only thing really was just me paying off my student loan because at the time when we were buying the house last year, the banks were very strict about student loans. I don't know if things have changed now, but at least for my mortgage advisor and for me banking with ANZ, they said absolutely not to having a student loan. So I had to pay that off really quickly. And that was something that just really took a chunk because I was like, oh gosh, like I have to pay all this money forward. That's money I would have put towards my part of the deposit. And now I'm like losing it just in the hopes that they're going to give me more, which they did. But it was really stressful. That was something that really was kind of us hitting a wall with that. Yeah.
And in terms of kind of your relationship and just actually, you know, trusting each other that this is going to be something that you can work through if there are any challenges with being able to meet repayments. What did you guys discuss in terms of managing the risk, I guess?
So for us, we discussed having life insurance and, you know, working through that. So just if anything would happen to either one of us, but also just knowing the fact that we just have full faith in each other that, you know, we're not going to screw each other over or anything. I think, you know, my mum and I have really good trust in each other and like my family in general. So I think it was kind of a no-brainer going in with her and we both 100% know that we're both committed to it and paying it off. I think also just paying off the lump sums as well. Like that's something that we've talked about. Okay, this year I wasn't able to pay forward a big lump sum because I wanted to save more money for other things like a car and stuff like that. But my mum was like, I'll put forward the lump sum. And so working together
Yeah.
for what's going to work out for the long run for both of us to benefit both of us. Yeah,
And then next year, potentially you kind of make a contribution to that big sum.
definitely.
And what's sort of your intent with making a big sum repayment as well?
So with that, it's definitely just to pay the mortgage off quicker. So we're wanting to pay the mortgage off fast. I'm wanting to pay the mortgage off before I'm 40. I'm 27 now. I know that sounds extremely ambitious. I know that most people pay it off in that 20 to 30 year mark because my mortgage is currently under that 30-year repayment.
Term, yeah.
But I think, as much as you can save and try to contribute back to your mortgage, that's not going to take a hit in your own lifestyle. And, it's just putting that money aside, it's really important because that's going to really reduce those years and the interest.
That you're paying. And in terms of how you manage your finances and kind of put things towards different areas of your life, how do you like to do that?
I actually like to do it similar to Hannah, actually. She's so inspiring with her budgeting videos. So I was someone who was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to put it aside here. Like I have my social media income coming in here, and then I've got my actual, full-time job income coming in to my other account. And then I was just like, okay, splitting it off. Okay, this is how much I know what my expenses are, but I would just kind of put the money aside instead of actually breaking it down into the accounts. I think it's so much easier to actually see where your money's going and what it's doing when you have it in the separate accounts.
Yeah.
Especially for like, okay, rainy day spending because, hey, you might have to get your car fixed and stuff like that. Like that kind of way is a much better approach to saving and looking after your finances for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially it's the out of sight, out of mind thing, right?
Yeah.
I know some people that have all the funds going into the one account, and I'm like, I would just be spending that,
Yeah.
not knowing, that it's meant to be reserved for this kind of particular activity. And in terms of how you got your deposit and kind of obviously have your income, do you want to tell us a little bit about your career and kind of how that supported and enabled your home ownership journey?
Yeah. So I have actually I say two sources of income, but more so four now. So when
Wow.
I first started my journey, it was two. So I have my full-time income. I've been working as a buyer for the last couple of years. It was the job that I got straight out of uni. I started in a marketing grad program and worked my way into a buyer's role. And now I'm a category specialist, which is really awesome. And, having that kind of role, which is definitely a role that is really what's needed, working in supply chain and procurement and everything. It's a really solid background to have, and also being able to take that into other positions and stuff later on. But also, being able to start in a marketing grad program where I was probably making a bit more than other people who were, finishing uni, which was really good. So
Picking that first role carefully.
picking the first role carefully is definitely important because, there's a salary that everyone kind of starts on when they finish uni. And
Yeah, the importance of that first role. And then what about that other sort of second income stream that you
yeah,
had?
so my second income stream is actually how I met Hannah. So through influencing, which is really cool. So making, short form content through TikTok and Instagram. It's been something that I've been doing for 3 years now, which is crazy. This is my third year of doing it, but it's definitely the third year has been the year I've been the most profitable, which is amazing. Like
It takes time, obviously, to build that.
it definitely takes time. I think initially when I first started, I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm making a little bit of money. Like that's awesome. But I never thought it could ever be like a proper side income that would actually contribute to, being able to go on trips and stuff and not having to worry about, okay, is it like dipping into my savings to like live a lifestyle that I want to, go on family holidays and stuff. And, that definitely helps out.
Awesome. And now you said you've got another 2 income streams as well.
Yeah, so I have another 2 income streams that I kind of started in June. So, the first one was in June, which was I have released a 3 weeks in Japan itinerary and guide. So basically I'm half Japanese and half Kiwi. And so I went to Japan with my boyfriend in March and April, and I took him along with me. It was his first time. And a lot of my followers were actually really intrigued by what we were doing. So I was like, should I just put out an itinerary? And people were like, yeah, I'd pay for it. I was like, okay, let me just put it out. So I priced it at $850 USD, and we've sold over 100 copies in the last couple of months,
Congrats.
which has been amazing. So that's really cool. And now I'm working on the volume 2. And then my fourth income is actually Sakura Social. So that is a digital marketing agency. So I started that up about a month ago, and I've got 2 clients at the moment, which is really awesome. So just helping small businesses manage their socials and really be able to get that reach and just brand awareness.
Yeah, so you're kind of taking the skills that you've used yourself and then supporting others with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And in terms of, I guess, a lot of those side hustles and those opportunities kind of came from your ability to connect with an audience and build that following. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey and kind of what you've found has worked? Because, it's important for us at Slice as well. So give us the tea.
Yeah. So basically, it's interesting because when I first started doing TikTok, I was doing skits and stuff like that. And like, it's so weird to say that because I'm like, I don't even like think about myself as that kind of person anymore. And it was just more like when I was doing skits, it was what was popular on TikTok at the time. So I was just jumping on the trend, whatever people were doing. And I didn't feel connected to my audience because they didn't know who I was. They were just like, oh, that girl who just makes skits.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a character, like a filter, because I was sort of scared to like show my true self and be like, I don't feel like I'm funny enough just being me. And then
I think that's one of the hardest like challenges with social media is actually, how to present yourself in an authentic way and feeling confident enough to do that.
100%. And I think that for me, once I transitioned into, doing lifestyle content, it was just the easiest transition for me because I was like, well, I'm just going to tell you guys about, my journey of buying a home and talking about that. And then like day in my life as a buyer and then just what I spend in a day as stuff and just like talking about my trips to Japan, and people started to really enjoy those. And I really realized that there was actually an audience for that. And I was like, oh, I can just be myself. So my biggest advice to people who are wanting to get into it is honestly just to be your authentic self and make content that you actually like.
Yeah. That's not kind of, emotionally exhausting or punishing to put out as well.
100%.
Because I think like then you put barriers in front of you yourself. I'm sort of speaking from experience, but it can be really challenging. So if you're doing something that you're enjoying and then just documenting that, then that makes sense to me. That's an easier way to build a community.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. And in terms of going back to home ownership and purchasing with your mum, how have you been managing with that? What's that process been like now that you're in the home?
Yeah, it's been really easy. I think like the stress and the angst was prior to buying the home. I think it was just like trying to find the right place. It was going to work for both of us because we both live in the home together. And so now it's just super easy. Like it's my partner, Max, my mum and I, and it's a 3-bedroom home, but we've got room for all of us. And, the dynamic's really good because it's almost like a granny flat / studio downstairs for my mum, which really works because we have our own privacy. No one's treading on anyone's toes. And I think it's, important when you're going into buying a home with someone. It's someone that you trust and you actually feel really comfortable with.
I guess looking back at your younger self, what sort of advice would you give around that home buying journey?
I think with my student loan, I think I would have liked to probably contribute more to it from when I first started full-time work because I was contributing the bare minimum. I was like, I'm going to give the bare minimum. And also for a long time, I was only doing 3% KiwiSaver, which is totally fine. But then when I realized probably like a year later, okay, actually I want to be increasing my KiwiSaver to put more money aside. I increased it to 8%, but I kind of wish I just did it to 8%, like the top, I think it was at the time, just straight after uni or like even just when I was working part-time, but instead of being like, oh, I just want to spend money on like, going overseas and going on trips and stuff, which was fun. But it's like, I wish I had a bit more in the bank for my deposit for myself in that way. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think the student loan's a really interesting one as well because you don't necessarily think about that, but it can be massive. Like it can be, I can't remember exactly what my payments were. I've only recently sort of lost those, but it was like 500 a fortnight or something like that, like really
it was
chunky.
Chunks. Yeah, and I was like, that takes a lot out of your, like what you can, save. Yeah. 100%.
And also spend. So it's like, I guess it's like paying now to reduce some of that down, but then now you don't have that coming out of your weekly paycheck.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, totally. And what about to other first home buyers? What advice would you give them?
Okay, so biggest advice I'd probably give is try, like I said about student loan, try and get your payments done, like increase as much as you can comfortably, but make sure that you have money aside for yourself. I'd also say, when it comes to savings, just break it into rainy day, long-term savings, and then your general spending and like your expenses, and just try and really just manage your money that way. Just instead of having it all in one bank account, try to split it out so then you can see what your money is doing and really be able to, if you have money accumulating, you have a bit more money on the side, instead of buying that dress, maybe you want to put 50-50 to your general spending and then put 50% of that into your long-term savings, and just try to think about it that way. I think the other thing as well is just like, don't give up. I know it's so hard sometimes when you're just like looking for a house and you're wanting to save and all that, and it can feel really discouraging. But honestly, like when the time comes and the right property comes and the time is right,
It's all worth it.
it's all worth it. Because we actually applied for 3 times for a mortgage because they only give you 3 months, and that really is like a short time frame to find a house. Do the builder's report. That's the other thing. Make sure you do your due diligence when you're finding a house. Like you have to do all this stuff. It's painful and it does cost money, but it is so important in the long run.
Yeah. How did you find that due diligence process?
Oh, it was a lot of learning lessons. So we did probably 3 builders reports. So that can be anywhere between $800 to $1,200, but it's always worth going to someone that you know is really trustworthy, a builder that is going to really be quite nitpicky with everything. Because we had a guy that was really nitpicky about stuff. And another thing that we noticed is that at our property, we didn't realize, but we knew that the house had been renovated, but we initially didn't realize that they had actually changed the staircase and from the deck. They'd actually extended the deck and added a staircase. And so we were like, oh, wait, they didn't have this in the reports, and the real estate agent didn't lay it out for us. And so it was on us to then go do our due diligence, look at that, and then realize that there was actually
no consent.
No consent, none of that. So then we had to go back and then negotiate that way. So that's really important as well, is doing your due diligence, making sure if the house has been renovated, what's happened, has it actually been applied for, has it been consented by council, and all that stuff too.
And how did you learn about the due diligence process as well and the steps that you needed to do?
We have a really great lawyer. She's a family friend, and so she really just guided us through every step of the way, which is amazing. I know not everyone has a lawyer as a family friend, and I think, having a really great lawyer if you can, and they are expensive, but it is so worth it. And also just doing your own homework on the side too, because it's not always your lawyer's responsibility for this stuff. Like you need to go look into it yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge for some of our customers, is that actually they don't realize there's certain activities that they need to do. It's not for the broker, it's not for the lawyer. We do have partner lawyers on the Slice platform though, and we've negotiated fixed legal fees.
Awesome.
So each kind of due diligence step, we have it mapped out on slicetobuy.com exactly what that involves. But one massive piece of value that we have sort of tried to bring together is actually fixed fees in that space, because of course if you don't have a family friend for a lawyer, those fees can quickly add up. They can
climb so fast and it gets expensive. Yeah
But that's good to know that you've managed to obviously move through that process, and once you get there, as you say, it is worth it. And on the co-ownership front as well with your mum, what kind of benefits have you experienced through that?
I think it's the ease of knowing that I don't have to put forward all this money every single week by myself. Or say if I just bought a property by myself and then I was just looking for flatmates, like having people to pay my rent and help me pay my mortgage and rely on that. And then, hey, they decide that they want to move on to somewhere else, and that's fair and that's okay. But me and my mum is like, we're holding each other accountable. We're living here. We bought this house together. And that is it's a great way to go about things if you have a trusting relationship. I think it's difficult when you try to go on by yourself and try to manage it all. So that's a really great benefit of co-ownership.
Yeah, so not actually just the funds to get in, but also management of those funds over time and being able to split the repayments.
And also being able to split bills and stuff too. Yeah. So that just makes it so much easier.
Totally. And all of that stuff's getting more expensive, even rates, insurance, utilities. So it does become a lot more challenging than perhaps it once was. And in terms of the general kind of property process, what do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced? Was it finding the right property? Because you said, 18 months, that's quite a long time.
It was 100% finding the right property for the right price, and also making sure that people weren't trying to buy the same property. That is very hard when you're in. At the time, we were sort of like, it was in between a seller's market and a buyer's market. We're kind of transitioning slowly. But when we went to auctions, it was so competitive. And I really it gave me so much anxiety going to those things, and it made me feel so discouraged.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It's emotionally taxing, the auction process.
100%. So if you can try and find a place that, is suitable for you, but it's, priced by negotiation, I feel like that always tends to go down a bit better, because then, even if someone put out a better offer than you, sometimes it could be, conditional. And so you don't know if they're actually going to be able to buy it yet. And that was the same thing that happened to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you end up buying by negotiation?
We bought by negotiation, and we had someone who actually put through a higher offer by, I think it was $50,000 above our offer.
Oh, wow.
So a significant amount. And of course they accepted that first, and then she was on condition of her selling her home, and she didn't end up even listing the property. So it was like, okay. And she had, I think, 2 weeks. And so the 2 weeks was so stressful. But, once we got the call, it was like, whoa, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have our final question for you,
Ooh.
Alluka, which is, if your home had a doorbell and that doorbell played a theme song, what would it play?
Oh my God. I feel like my current theme song is The Man by Taylor Swift. I'm just really in my The Man era right now.
Love that for you. You're the second Swiftie we've had on.
Really?
Yeah, the
iconic.
the data's there.
Yeah.
She's topping the charts.
Oh, she is, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining our community. Buying property isn't easy, but listening in will get you one step closer on your journey. Please leave an Apple or Spotify review and provide feedback so we can improve your experience. Join our Facebook group, A Safe Space to Learn Together, or follow us on Instagram at @slicetobuy. If you have any questions or topics you would like us to touch on, you can email us at hello@slicetobuy.com. A quick reminder, Slice the podcast does not provide personalised investment advice. We are not acting as financial advisors or taking into account your circumstances. To get personalised advice, join us at slicetobuy.com and engage with our partners who can act as your financial advisor or lawyer and support you with your specific needs.